when it comes to that thing that I think we've all heard a lot of, which is, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you can be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. And certainly the example you said earlier is very true. 10, 15 years ago, who had ever heard of a social media manager? Now it's, every company has one. Every entrepreneur is one in many ways. And so these things are so commonplace. And perhaps a decade ago, they were just blowing everybody's minds. So I think that there's some solace to take from that, and I agree. And that's very likely to happen. It'll create its own economy, its own industry. But when we're talking about the kinds of skills and the kinds of abilities, capabilities that human beings, whether you want to call them workers or entrepreneurs, housewives, whoever they are going to find some solace, let's say, in AI sort of changing things up in the world. Where do you think those areas are? Where are the sort of where's the last stand going to be? If that's something that, we could ring fence, or perhaps it's just a set of skills. Have you thought about what those might be?
Well, yeah, the most important ability is adaptability.
Hmm.
And it's one thing that humans are particularly bad at. This is why old people say, "Oh, it wasn't like that in my day." That they're not willing to adapt and see things through a different lens. They're seeing things through their own filter. And humans are incredibly egocentric. And I don't mean that in the terms that they've got an ego. I mean it's about the self, that they're focused on themselves. Everyone's favorite topic is themselves. If you want to be a great conversationalist, you ask people about themselves, and they will think that you were amazing at talking because you ask questions
Yes,
about
it's
how do
true.
you do that? Why
Yeah.
are you interested? So because of that, people have their own filters, but people don't understand that they're seeing life through filters.
Mm.
And they think that everyone else sees life that way. Then if other people don't, they must be idiots. And it's kind of like it feels as it's like the low intelligence approach that people have, where they just don't understand that other people have very different points of view, very different life experiences. So adaptability is something that we are not great at. And it's the biggest issue that I have when I go into organizations as well. How do I encourage an organization to adapt? We know that in many organizations that the best thing that they could possibly do right now is actually cull like a certain part of their company and start again.
Mm.
When I worked in advertising, I quit advertising in 2010, and I believed that the majority of agencies that I'd worked in would be far more efficient, produce far better work, and keep their clients happier if they get rid of half the workforce. They had become bloated. And when people feel that because they have a title, they have to be involved in this process,
Yeah.
and it's like it's no longer nimble. Everything has become, I don't want to be left out. Don't take this away from me. That becomes the approach. And when that happens, you're screwed. The company is no longer doing what is right for the client or for the product at the end. They are doing what is right for precious little individuals with their fiefdoms. And most organizations, I think most people would admit that most organizations would be better if you got rid of a large chunk of them and you started from scratch. But of course, that's not the way organizations work. And they move very slowly because they're particularly bad at adapting, and they go for sticky plaster approaches
Yeah.
rather than sort of properly addressing problems. So I think that adaptability is the skill that will really help you stand out. And as somebody I define myself as an educator now, um, I would say that continual learning is the most important thing. And it's incredible how many people don't focus on continual learning. They
Mm.
think that I'm doing what I've done, I've learned it this way, I'm doing it this way, that's the way it is. I just think that sucks. And that's what holds humanity back. But it always has done. That is the way humanity is. It's the way people are. That you get some people who want to question stuff and be a contrarian and push things forward, and you get the majority who are looking for the status quo, they're looking for
Yeah.
stasis, they're looking for safety, they're looking for predictability. And that's all stuff that, whichever dysfunctional way I've been built, that's all the stuff that turns my stomach.
Mm.
I want the opposite of that, which is why I've taken big risks in my life. And, it's kind of paid off, but I could never live in the way of just being predictable, doing the same thing day in, day out. I kind of railed against that as a kid, and I've got an allergy to it. So that to me it's embracing change is the most important ability, and continual growth,
Yeah.
because this is going to be changing forever. You know, we're not living in a world where you can just learn something and sit back anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that then goes right back to being adaptable and understanding that that's not the way the world works anymore. Um, and you were talking about the ego earlier, and that, in a very literal sense, also does get in the way. It's very hard for us to see past that and not understand that we are seeing the world through filters, through our own filters, unbeknownst to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that ends up, sometimes biting us in the backside. Um, yeah, I suppose if an entrepreneur or perhaps a freelancer, creative director in an agency is listening to us talk, they might be thinking, okay, Dave and Alex, sounds great, and yes, I agree, adaptability, absolutely. That's just a good life skill to have. To be able to roll with the punches, understand where things are coming at you, and being able to kind of keep going, and continual learning, always being able to sharpen up your skills. But is that going to help me to kind of pay the rent at the end of the month? Like in the age of AI, when I'm worried about, potentially, is my agency going to be around over the next 6 months? Because nowadays everyone, with a Canva account and a Chat GPT subscription is just doing all of the artwork, themselves. Is there another practical tool? Is there something else that I really should be paying attention to when it comes to staying competitive? Or is it maybe about, the old Peter Thiel approach, which is don't even try and be competitive. Start something else and use it as a way to, have a tabula rasa and jump into something totally new. I can see you smiling, so
Oh
I
yeah.
have a feeling I know where this.
well, that approach is what I personally prefer, but I know that it's not right for everyone. So, for people who are, say, freelancers, say you're a designer, you've
Yep.
gone to art school, you've learned how to design, you've built up some amazing design skills, and you know how to use your software, but you're worried that this Photoshop, as it embraces more AI, it's doing more of the stuff that you actually used to do.
Mm,
That now, when you used to cobble something together in Photoshop, now you just select a part of the image and you say generative fill, and you get three options, and you go, "Damn, that's better than I could have done,
yeah.
given 2 hours." So yes, there are a lot of people in fear. Fear comes from a knowledge gap in this situation. If you do not have the knowledge of what's coming, of what it is you need to do, what your next move is, that creates fear. And the best way to get rid of fear is to fill the knowledge gap with the knowledge. So you have to learn about this stuff. And the way that I used to talk to finance directors when I was doing mainly innovation, I would ask to speak to the money people in the organization, and I would talk to them about in a way that they understood. Like when we're looking
Mm,
for money to do innovative projects, I would say to them, if you were lucky enough to have 100 earth pounds to invest, and you went to a financial advisor, what would they say was the best thing? And they'd say usually, like, well, take 80% of it, put it in low risk, low return, take 20% of it, put it in high risk, high return. I said, great. That's what you have to do when you are looking at the finances of the business. Even that's what we need to be doing when we're looking at the way that people spend time within the
mm,
business. It might not be 80-20, it might be 90-10, it might be 95-5. Whatever it is that we do, we are investing either in ourselves or in our organization. And it means that the majority of what we do what we've always done. It's the low risk, low return. We do what we've always done. And
yeah.
then for this other 20%, 10%, 5%, 3%, whatever, we take that time or we take that money and we invest it in what hasn't been done before. We invest it in experiments. We invest it in trying out stuff that we've got no guarantee is going to work. And you know what? If we've got a good system and it fails, you have not failed because you've learned. And learning is the most valuable thing. And it means that you are one step further than you were before because you've learned something.
Mm,
You've filled that great expanse of unknown before you with a known. And that is how we move forward into this, into the future. That's always how we've done it. And when I spoke to finance folk like that, they got it. And I managed to I managed to get some decent budgets for some of my clients by speaking to the people who held the purse strings, to get them to understand the importance of this and how foolish it was in not investing in your time, or monetarily in these next steps beyond. And
Yeah.
so for these freelancers, you also have to look at your, is time is really what you're going to be spending here rather than necessarily money. It might cost you a little bit on learning stuff. It might cost you a little bit in getting new tools to try out, but you have to invest in yourself. You have to constantly be pushing to try and create these, fill these little bits of knowledge to be your stepping stones into the future. And the better you are at doing that, the further ahead you are of the competition. If you refuse to do it, you become irrelevant very, very quickly. So it's not even an option now. You have to do this. You have to learn. You have to fill your knowledge gaps. And I think anyone who's not doing that is going to have a relatively short career now.